only because of an inter-team training match. He fought till his leg fractured at a 90-degree angle. From a lone eagle in the desert dashed by fate, to becoming the General Joe who shaped the American dream. Brandon Miller, the second show of 2023, even hailed him as the GOAT. Paul George's story tells us, if you don't want to live in the shadow of others, then you should try to choke fate. If you are left on a cliff without retreating, it means giving yourself a chance to charge towards the heights of life. George was born in Palmdale, the quiet north of Los Angeles, only a mountain away from the star-studded Hollywood. But Palmdale has nothing but the desert, and the people who are struggling for life. Mother was bedridden due to a stroke. Father went out early and returned late. George could only practice Kobe's moves from the Lakers day after day. He knew that to cross that life-changing mountain, the basketball is his only weapon. Yet when DeRozan, of the same age, already made a name for himself in AAU, the obscure George was still waiting for a chance to play, because he couldn't afford sports shorts. George's first official game still wore the broken jeans inherited from his sister. Actually, after entering high school, because of his lack of confidence, he rarely had a chance to play. The Mamba skills he had practiced for many years. Just like that, he hid them under his low-key appearance. He didn't receive a scholarship from a prestigious school. Eventually joined the Fresno State University. The fledgling of Palmdale has not yet broken away from the family's swaddling. Can't imagine the view on the other side of the mountain. Until he met Kawhi Leonard in NCAA. Two similar souls collided with an intense spark. Leonard barely spoke in the game. George was impressed by his concentration. From then on, he bid farewell to wild thoughts, leaving everything in every game. Thus his talent was realized. During sophomore year, he could contribute to 16.8 points, 6.2 rebounds, 2.2 steals per game. Successfully selected into the best second team of the season. The confident him announced in the summer break to join the NBA draft. The Clippers held the 8th pick of the first round of draft that year. At this time, George seemed to feel that dream is about to become reality. The 2010 draft was called the Cursed Generation. Apart from Wall, Cousins, and Hayward, only George is left with an all-star qualification. However, all of these careers couldn't escape the misfortune of being crushed by injuries. In the end, George didn't get the favor of the Clippers. He was selected by Indiana at the 10th pick. The Pacers were in a rebuilding phase at the time. The team's top star was Danny Granger. His duo with George was once hopeful. But LeBron's decision overcast the entire East. Most of George's rookie season spent on the bench. The team's records were more losses than wins. Until Frank Vogel, who emphasized defense, took over. George finally saw his day rise. In a lockout-shortened season dominated by the Heat and the Bulls, the young Indiana Pacers advanced to the playoffs as the third seed in the East. When LeBron held up the regular season MVP trophy before the Eastern Conference semifinals, he was completely unaware of the Pacers lurking behind him. The city that has been fighting the elites since the Miller era has been eagerly preparing to strike South Beach, relying on the wildfire of LeBron and Wade's connection. The Heat, under the guidance of Pat Riley, first abandoned the traditional center, transforming Bosh the Dragon King into a space-type center, maximizing the Heat's breakthrough space. This season, the Heat's fast break points led the entire league. But, at the same time, getting this advantage sacrificed their rebounding, especially after Bosh left the first game due to injury. The team's reliance on LeBron and Wade reached an insane level. So in front of Wade, who opened fire, George left the field with 6 fouls after only playing 26 minutes in the first game. Although Bosh officially entered the injury list after that, but the outside world still firmly believed the Heat will easily eliminate the Pacers. After all, compared to LeBron and Wade in their prime, the combination of Granger and George is nothing more than a mantis trying to stop a chariot. However, the Pacers in the second game snatched home court advantage from the Heat. In that game, George contained Wade to 8 of 22 shooting, and produced an impressive performance of 10 points, 11 rebounds, and 3 steals. The victory flames stirred up the young ambition. As the battlefield moved to Indiana, LeBron experienced the hostility faced by Jordan and Ewing in their time. In the Bankers Life Fieldhouse under the roar of the crowd, the Pacers won a big victory of 94-75. Showcasing the wildness of the young generation, LeBron scored only 6 points in the second half, and Wade only got 5 points from 13 attempts. During a timeout in the third quarter, cameras even captured a heated argument between him and Coach SPO. Did the Heat's big three fall apart after only 2 seasons? But as the soul of Miami Heat, Wade, who gave South Beach its first championship, how could he sit idle at this critical juncture? From the second half of Game 4, Wade put back on his flash robes, swiftly and fiercely moved in every corner of the court, helped the Heat win 3 games in a row to advance to the Eastern Finals. In the crucial Game 6, Wade scored 41 points and 10 rebounds, Facing such a terrifying scoring machine, George realized the gap between dreams and reality. But since South Beach is the most powerful tyrant in the East, then fighting back is inherent in the Pacers. In the end, the Heat got the 2012 championship. And in the summer break, while keeping the original lineup, they signed Ray Allen and Lewis with 2 old-timers minimum deals. In contrast, Granger announced an indefinite injury absence. The entire Eastern Conference failed to rival the Heat. But when the 12-13 season's journey slowly advanced, George exploded to a degree that gave Indiana new hope. Against the Hornets, his single-game 9 three-pointers tied Miller's team record. After winning the Most Improved Player of the season, the Pacers continued into the playoffs as the third in the East. After dealing with the Hawks and Knicks with 2-4-2s, the Pacers met with the Heat in the Eastern Finals as they wished. George, who was just a defensive tip a year ago, scored a 27-point blowout in the first game, but in the last 2.2 seconds of overtime, LeBron used his superhuman explosion, forced a stance, helped the Heat 103-102 to take the lead. The next 29 points, 10 rebounds dominated by Hibbert. The Pacers once again took home court advantage from the South Beach. LeBron, who won 27 consecutive wins in the regular season with fast breaks, also became more and more hesitant in front of this wall of meat. Frank Vogel, the video maniac, the tactics worked. He used muscle stick to lock the inside line, and unlimited switching on the outer perimeter, causing LeBron to play quite agonizing in this series. After 6 games, both sides still broke even. The decisive Game 7. Both sides entered a brawl from the start. Intense physical confrontations and cacophonous clangs. The Pacers, overwhelmingly superior in rebounds, seemed to have gained the initiative. However, the young general underestimated the Emperor's determination, as the Heat in the second quarter substituted in Birdman Anderson to protect the rebounds. A raging defensive counterattack broke through the Pacers' invincible shield formation instantaneously, with a 33-16 shockwave squashing the suspense of the match. But this series of matches made the Pacers ascertain George as their future. In the new season after Granger's return, his performance declined significantly. After 29 games, he was sent to Philadelphia. Although George once tried hard to persuade the management to retain this big brother. But as Eileen Zhang says, life is like a ball. The one who taught you the basics may not be able to accompany you to the end. Bidding farewell to the glorious past, George continued on his journey to resist the Heat dynasty. That season they had the best record in the East, but ultimately failed to overthrow the Heat's hegemony. In the 2014 finals, George witnessed Leonard's comprehensive awakening. The cold-blooded killer who once competed in the NCAA, already under Popovich's guidance, transformed into a war machine on both ends of the floor. And with LeBron James the decision part 2 during the offseason, the well-prepared Pacers seemed to see a promising future. When the 2014 World Championship opened grandly in Spain, George was invited to join the U.S. men's team for pre-competition preparations. For the Hawk of Palmdale, this was a road to glory. But that accident that Harden can never forget snapped George's wings abruptly. The air around him froze instantly. George tried to stand up but was unsuccessful. Only when he was stretchered off the court did he realize that the injury was irreversible. Still, he never shed a tear, because an injury is never an excuse for a man to retreat. Compared with the physical pain, the seemingly endless recovery was really tormenting. The outside world's doubts built up into a worldly wall. Would George still be the same after the severe injury? Thankfully, he did not follow Granger's path. But in that darkest of times, he nurtured a heart good enough for a superstar. After returning, George took off his number 24 jersey, choosing a number despised by the West. Perhaps only a cursed destiny deserves George's comeback as king. The wings of time unfurled the curtain for the 15-16 season. The Pacers, once resistant to the Heat dynasty, had gone through drastic changes. Apart from the familiar face of Hill, those brothers-in-arms have gone their separate ways. Yet, George defiantly averaged a career-high 23.1 points and 7 rebounds per game, leading a team that should have been vying for an easier draw into the playoffs. That year, the Pacers battled 7 games with the Raptors, ranking second in the Eastern Conference. George averaged 45.5 minutes per game, with 27.3 points, 7.6 rebounds, and 4.3 assists, only to lose regretfully due to a too-thin inside line. As the fervent winds swept through the hot summer of Rio de Janeiro, George once again donned Team USA's jersey. On the offensive end, he was the trooper. In defense, he was the rock-solid artillery. After winning the Olympic gold as he wished, his story had become a quintessential American dream. Yet, seeing Indiana set on rebuilding, it was common knowledge that George wanted to play back in his hometown. Thus, management traded his final year of rights to the Thunder. It was there that he earned the label of Playoff P. 17-18 season of Oklahoma City looked good on paper, but in the first round of the playoffs, they were overturned by Mitchell's single-handed coup. In comparison, the Pacers, after trading for Oladipo, battled 7 games with the Cavaliers under LeBron's rule, before admitting defeat. In the final battle, George, having only scored 5 points, became the target of thousands. With LeBron James the decision Part 3 during the offseason, the Pelicans' Brel, too, expressed his desire to go to the City of Angels. George, already a free agent, seemed to have no reason not to go to the Lakers. But Westbrook's sincere plea made him regard Oklahoma as his second hometown. The bond between Westbrook and George drove the Thunder to make the last push for the championship. George scored a career-high average of 28 points and 8.2 rebounds in that season. True shooting percentage reached 60.8%. Selected into the league first team, ranked 3rd in MVP. The continuous reports of glorious victories interwove into a splendid picture of the Thunder's revival. But Lillard's last-minute shot tore everything into shreds. That summer, George was recruited by Leonard. The two kids from Los Angeles formed an alliance in the Clippers. They resolved to challenge the LeBron-Wade. This was the closest the Clippers have ever been to the championship. But under the dual curse of 50 years without a championship since its establishment, and the Rivers Law, they underwent a miraculous reversal in the Western Conference semifinals. Leading 3-1, this time George yet again became the scapegoat of the team's loss. Amazingly, there exist people who can't be led even by Kawhi. In terms of disappointment, George has never let people down. Fortunately, a healthy Clippers is still a strong contender for the championship. Unfortunately, in 2019, Kawhi, the celestial being, fell into the injury curse. In the 20-21 Western semifinals, the Clippers, who narrowly won 4-3 against Mavericks in the first round, were pulled into the mire by the Jazz. After splitting the first 4 games, Leonard was ruled out for the season due to a torn right knee anterior cruciate ligament. 2 consecutive years of hopeful all-out efforts led to the same awkward result via different processes. The past team that had never made it to the Western Finals was destined to be the discarded pawn abandoned by fate. Yet to change that fate is George's destiny. A decisive battle at the peak, George took command in the face of a defeated army, undertook a mission amidst dangerous times. His smooth footwork caused havoc in the enemy lines. Pristine Salt Lake City was left defenseless. Fearless courage played to the tune of Clippers' victory. Rudy Gobert, the Defensive Player of the Year, was of no avail at this moment. George cut down 37 points, 16 rebounds, and 5 assists in this battle. Almost single-handedly brought down the regular season champions. The 6th stop, returning to Los Angeles. The hometown elders have long been eager to welcome a brand new history. The cruelty of close combat is vividly displayed on paper. The scene is filled with George sprinting across the court amidst dust and smoke. Tears intertwined with blood soaked his shirt. Infinite honor and mission forged his unyielding will. In this fanatic battlefield of the end times, mountains are high, roads are long, pits are deep. The army is rushing in all directions. Who dares to draw a sword and take a stand? For my General George.